The November rain pounded against the windows of the Beacon Hill mansion as Michael Donovan pushed open the heavy oak door. 16 days in Singapore had left him exhausted, his expensive suit still creased from the 14-hour flight. The house was unnaturally silent. No television sounds. No children's laughter. Nothing but the hollow echo of the door closing behind him and the persistent drumming of rain against glass. Something primal stirred in his chest. A sixth sense developed during his years as a Navy SEAL. Danger. Something was wrong. Then he saw them. Sarah lay on the marble floor of the entrance hall, her small body so thin he could see every bone through her nightgown. Her right leg was bent at an impossible angle, the skin around it purple and swollen, radiating heat from infection. She was trying to crawl, her fingernails scraping against the floor, leaving tiny streaks of blood where they had torn away. Behind her, clutched in her frail hand, was the shirt of her baby brother Luke. She was dragging him, pulling him inch by painful inch across the cold marble. The 18-month-old was gray, his lips cracked and bleeding. His eyes rolled back in his head. His breathing came in shallow, rattling gasps that sounded like something broken inside. His diaper hung loose on his skeletal frame, unchanged for days, and his skin was papery thin, stretched over bones that seemed too large for his tiny body. Michael's briefcase hit the floor with a crack that echoed through the cavernous hallway. He was moving before his mind caught up, sliding to his knees beside his children, his hands hovering over them, afraid to touch, afraid to hurt them more than they were already hurt. "Sarah," he whispered, his voice breaking on her name. "Sarah, baby, what happened?" The little girl's eyes fluttered open, brown like her mother's, but dull, empty, the light in them almost gone. She looked at him, and for a moment, she didn't recognize him. For a moment, she flinched away as if expecting a blow. That was when Michael felt his heart crack straight down the middle. "Daddy?" Her voice was a rasp, her throat so dry the word barely formed. "Daddy, is it really you? Are you real?" "I'm real. I'm here. I'm here now." Tears streamed down his face as he carefully gathered Sarah into his arms. She weighed nothing. This child, who should have been 45 pounds, was maybe 27, her body like a bird's, fragile and hollow. "Luke needs water," she said, trying to pull away from Michael's embrace to reach for her brother. "Please, Daddy, he needs water. He hasn't had anything to drink in so long. I tried to save my spit for him, but there wasn't enough. I tried so hard." Michael's phone was in his hand, dialing 911. When the operator answered, he spoke with a calm that belied the screaming inside his head. "I need ambulance at 47 Chestnut Street, Beacon Hill. 2 children, severe abuse, malnutrition, dehydration. One has a broken leg that looks infected. The other is an infant, possibly near death. Come now, come right now." He grabbed his water bottle from his briefcase and held it to Luke's lips, letting just drops fall into the baby's mouth. The emergency operator was still on speakerphone. "Sir, be very careful with the water. Too much, too fast can be dangerous after severe dehydration. Just drops at a time." Luke's eyes opened slightly, and he made a small sound as he began to weakly suck at the bottle. Sarah watched, her face twisted with relief and anguish. Michael realized with horror that she had not asked for water for herself, only for her brother, as if she had been trained to believe her own needs didn't matter. "Drink, Sarah," he said, holding the bottle to her lips. "Please, baby, drink." She took small sips and then began coughing and crying. "I tried to keep him safe, Daddy. I gave him my food when she gave us any. I sang Mama's songs to him in the dark. I promised him you would come back. I promised, but I was scared you wouldn't. Scared you didn't know. Scared she would write when she said you didn't care about us anymore." "No," Michael said, his voice steel and fire in absolute certainty. "That is not true. That was never true. I love you. I have always loved you. And I am here now, and no one will ever hurt you again. Do you understand me? No one." Footsteps on the stairs, high heels clicking on marble. Then Vanessa's voice, sweet and concerned, floating down from above. "Michael, darling, is that you? I didn't expect you home until tomorrow. What's all the commotion?" She appeared at the top of the staircase, beautiful in a silk robe, her dark hair perfect, her makeup flawless even at midnight. She smiled down at him with such warmth, such apparent love, that for a moment Michael felt reality tilt and spin. How could this woman, who looked like an angel, have done this to his children? But then he looked down at Sarah, at the terror in her eyes, at the way she had gone silent and still, as if playing dead. And he knew with absolute certainty that every word his daughter had spoken was truth. Vanessa descended the stairs slowly, gracefully, her hand trailing along the banister. When she reached the bottom, she looked at the children, her face showing perfect surprise and concern. "Oh my goodness, what happened, Michael? I put them to bed hours ago. They must have snuck out. Sarah has been so difficult lately, so disobedient. I've tried everything, but she just won't listen. And now look, she's gotten hurt somehow. Children can be so reckless." Her voice was sympathy itself, the voice of a worried mother doing her best. Michael stood slowly, still holding Luke, and looked at Vanessa. He saw for the first time what had been hidden from him, the calculation in her eyes, the coldness beneath the beauty, the mask she wore so perfectly. "The ambulances are coming," he said quietly. "You should pack a bag. You won't be staying here tonight." Vanessa's smile flickered for just a second. In that flicker, Michael saw rage, pure rage, flash across her features before she smoothed it away. "Michael, you're tired from your trip. You're not thinking clearly. Let me handle the children. You go rest. We can talk about this in the morning when you're more yourself." "I am exactly myself," Michael said, his voice ice, "and you will not touch my children ever again." The sirens were getting closer, the sound cutting through the storm. Vanessa's composure began to crack, her hands clenching into fists, her jaw tightening. "You have no idea what you're talking about," she hissed, the mask slipping to reveal the cruelty beneath. "Those children are spoiled, ungrateful. They lie constantly. Sarah makes up stories for attention. She's manipulative. She hurts herself to make me look bad. You can't believe anything she says." Sarah whimpered and tried to make herself smaller, tried to disappear. That sound, that terrible sound of a child trying not to exist, made something snap inside Michael. "Get out of my house," he said, his voice deadly calm. "Get out now before I do something we'll both regret. The police are 2 minutes away. If you're smart, you'll leave before they arrive." Vanessa stared at him, and for a moment he thought she might attack, might launch herself at him or the children. But headlights swept through the windows, red and blue lights flashing, and she turned and ran, her heels clicking fast now, racing toward the back of the house, disappearing into the darkness. The paramedics came through the door like an army, professional and swift. Michael found himself answering questions in a voice that didn't sound like his own while they loaded his children onto stretchers, started IVs, wrapped Sarah's leg, and put an oxygen mask on Luke's tiny face. "Who did this?" one paramedic asked. A woman with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun. "My wife," Michael said, the words ash in his mouth. "Their stepmother. She's been abusing them while I was traveling for work. I just found out tonight." The paramedic's face hardened, and she nodded once sharply. "The children are strong. They fought to survive. We'll take good care of them." Michael rode in the ambulance, holding Sarah's hand while she drifted in and out of consciousness, watching Luke breathe with the help of machines. He made promises, silent vows, that he would never stop fighting for them, never stop protecting them, never again let work or money or anything else blind him to what mattered most. The hospital room was dim and quiet except for the steady beep of monitors and the soft whoosh of Luke's ventilator. Michael sat in a plastic chair between his children's beds, holding Sarah's hand on one side and his finger curled around Luke's tiny fist on the other. He hadn't slept in 36 hours, hadn't eaten, hadn't moved except when nurses firmly insisted he step aside so they could work. Sarah had been in surgery for 4 hours to repair her leg and clean out the infection. The surgeon said it was touch and go. Another day or two and she might have lost the leg entirely, might have died from sepsis. She was sleeping now, her face pale against the white pillows, her breathing steady with the help of oxygen. Every time Michael looked at her, he saw the bruises, the scars, the evidence of months of torture. Luke was fighting, his little body waging war against dehydration, starvation, and pneumonia all at once. The doctors had managed to stabilize him, but he was not out of danger yet, his organs still struggling to function properly after being deprived for so long. Michael had called his assistant at 3 in the morning and told her to clear his schedule indefinitely, cancel everything. He didn't care about the Singapore deal, or the board meeting, or the product launch. Nothing mattered except his children. She had said, "Yes, sir," without question, though he had heard the shock in her voice. In 15 years, Michael Donovan had never missed work, never put anything before business. What a blind, arrogant fool he had been. Images flashed through his mind as he sat there, holding his children's hands. 10 years ago in Afghanistan, the satellite call from his commanding officer. Elizabeth, car accident, dead on impact. His world shattering while gunfire echoed around him. The months of PTSD that followed, the nightmares, the guilt that he hadn't been there when she needed him. Then coming home to Boston, to Sarah, just 3 years old then, throwing himself into building Sentinel Security from a small startup into a $3 billion cybersecurity firm. Working 18-hour days, traveling constantly, telling himself he was securing his children's future while he was actually running from his pain, running from the empty space Elizabeth had left. And 18 months ago, Vanessa had appeared in his life. Beautiful, caring, understanding, claiming to be Elizabeth's distant cousin, someone who had reconnected with the family after hearing about Elizabeth's death. She had known things about Elizabeth that seemed to confirm her story. Looking back now, Michael realized she must have researched Elizabeth extensively, learning everything she needed to know to convince him. She had targeted his vulnerability, his guilt. She had played the perfect supportive partner, the perfect stepmother when he was watching. And when he wasn't, she had tortured his children. How many signs had he missed? How many times had Sarah tried to tell him in her own way? The quietness when he returned home. The way she stopped asking to call him when he traveled. The way Luke cried more and more when Michael was around, as if desperately trying to communicate something his infant mind couldn't articulate. Detective Diana Rodriguez entered the room quietly, her badge hanging from a chain around her neck. She was tall, with short salt and pepper hair, and eyes that had seen too much but hadn't hardened. Not completely. "Mr. Donovan," she said softly, "I need to speak with you." Michael followed her to a small consultation room down the hall, glancing back repeatedly to make sure his children were still in sight. He couldn't bear to have them out of his view, even for a moment. "We searched your house with a warrant," Detective Rodriguez said, her voice professional, but her eyes angry. "Mr. Donovan, I've been doing this for 20 years, and what we found is among the worst cases I've seen. The storage closet where your children were locked. Evidence they'd been kept there repeatedly. Scratch marks on the inside of the door. Dried blood stains from where they'd had accidents because they couldn't reach a bathroom." Michael closed his eyes and tried not to vomit. There were empty water bottles that looked like they'd been licked clean. The pantry in your kitchen is fully stocked, but there's a lock on the door that can only be opened from the outside. Detective Rodriguez continued, relentless but necessary. "We found Sarah's bedroom. It's been stripped, almost bare. No toys, no books, just a thin mattress on the floor and a single blanket. There's writing on the walls, words scratched into the paint with something sharp. 'Help us. Daddy, come home. Mommy, I'm sorry.' Over and over." Michael couldn't breathe. The air seemed to have solidified in his lungs. "We also found a diary," Rodriguez said, placing a plastic evidence bag on the table between them. Inside was a small notebook with a pink cover, worn and stained. It was hidden under Sarah's mattress. "Mr. Donovan, I need your permission to read some of it aloud because you need to understand what's been happening." "Read it," Michael whispered. "I need to know everything." Detective Rodriguez opened the diary to a page marked with a sticky note and began to read in a flat, careful voice that couldn't hide the horror of the words. "March 15th. Dear Mommy in Heaven, Vanessa said I was bad today because I gave Luke my breakfast. She locked me in the dark closet for 6 hours. I could hear Luke crying and I couldn't help him. I tried to be good, Mommy. I promise I tried, but she says I'm bad like you were bad, and that's why you died and left us. I miss you so much. Love, Sarah." Michael made a sound like a wounded animal. Detective Rodriguez turned pages. April 3rd. Dear Mommy, Vanessa burned me with her cigarette today because I didn't smile pretty enough on the video call with Daddy. She said if I ever tell him what happens, she'll hurt Luke bad. She'll make Hesos to make him stop breathing. She promised she would do it. I believe her, Mommy. I'm so scared. I have to protect Luke. He's all I have left of you. I wish Daddy would see. Love, Sarah. Stop, Michael begged. But Detective Rodriguez shook her head. You need to hear this. You need to understand so you can help us build the case. She turned more pages. June 20th. Dear Mommy, I haven't written in a long time because Vanessa found my diary and beat me and said if I wrote again, she'd kill Luke. But I have to write, Mommy. I have to tell someone. She hasn't given us real food in 3 days. Just crackers and water, and only sometimes. Luke is so skinny now. His eyes look big and sad. I sing him your songs and tell him stories about when Daddy took us to the beach. I try to remember being happy. It's hard to remember. Love, Sarah. The detective closed the diary gently, reverently, and looked at Michael with something like pity in her eyes. There are 47 entries over the past year and a half, all of them documenting abuse. Your daughter kept a record because she was smart enough to know she might need evidence, brave enough to risk writing it down even after being punished for it. She's remarkable, Mr. Donovan. She saved her brother's life multiple times. She's a hero. She's 7 years old, Michael said, his voice breaking. She shouldn't have to be a hero. She should be playing with dolls and going to school and being safe, being loved, being a child. You're right, Detective Rodriguez agreed. And now we're going to make sure Vanessa pays for what she's done. We've issued a warrant for her arrest on multiple counts of child abuse, child endangerment, assault, false imprisonment, and attempted murder. We will find her. Where could she have gone? Michael asked. Does she have family? Friends who would hide her? Detective Rodriguez pulled out her notepad. We've been looking into Mrs. Donovan's background. Turns out Vanessa Mitchell is not her real name. She was born Vanessa Pierce in Miami. Changed her name legally 6 years ago after being fired from a nanny position for suspected abuse. The family didn't press charges because they couldn't prove it definitively. But she was blacklisted from child care agencies. The world tilted again. What do you mean? She said she was Elizabeth's cousin. They weren't actually related, Detective Rodriguez said grimly. Vanessa researched your wife's family, found out Elizabeth had a distant cousin named Vanessa Mitchell who had died in a car accident years ago and assumed her identity. She targeted your family specifically, Mr. Donovan. She saw a wealthy widower with young children, and she saw an opportunity. Michael felt sick. Opportunity for what? Money. She's been systematically draining your accounts in small amounts you wouldn't notice. Nearly $2.7 million over the past 18 months. I gave her whatever she needed, Michael said, the realization dawning on him that he had been played completely, his grief and guilt manipulated masterfully. Credit cards, bank accounts. I trusted her. We're still investigating her motives, but we found something interesting in her personal safe. Transfers to an offshore account, and correspondence with someone. Emails printed out and hidden. Someone named James Reynolds. Do you know that name? Michael's blood went cold. James Reynolds is my former business partner. I exposed him for corporate fraud 5 years ago. He was siphoning client data and selling it to competitors. He threatened to ruin me, said I'd regret exposing him. I haven't heard from him since. You think he and Vanessa are working together? Michael asked, the pieces falling into place with horrifying clarity. We think Vanessa was planted in your life by Reynolds as part of a revenge scheme, Detective Rodriguez said. The emails suggest they were planning to gain control of your children, possibly through having you declared an unfit parent or through a tragic accident. With you out of the way and the children in Vanessa's custody, she would have access to your entire fortune through trust funds and estate planning. It's sophisticated, cruel, and premeditated. Michael stood up so fast his chair scraped across the floor. Where is Reynolds now? Have you brought him in for questioning? We have officers on the way to his residence in Manhattan, Detective Rodriguez said. But Mr. Donovan, there's something else. We checked Vanessa's recent phone records. She made 17 calls in the past week to a burner phone. The last call was 2 hours before you arrived home. We think she was tipped off that you were coming back early. Tipped off by who? Michael demanded. Only my assistant knew my travel plans. We need to speak with your assistant, Detective Rodriguez said. What's her name? Jennifer Chen. She's been with me for 8 years. She's completely trustworthy. She would never. Michael stopped because he had thought Vanessa was trustworthy too. He had thought he knew people, and he had been catastrophically wrong. Detective Rodriguez was already on her phone, making calls, coordinating with other officers, and Michael felt the walls closing in. How deep did this conspiracy go? How many people had been involved in torturing his children while he flew around the world, oblivious and arrogant? A nurse appeared in the doorway, her face urgent. Mr. Donovan, you need to come now. Sarah is awake and she's asking for you. She's very agitated. Michael ran, his heart pounding. When he reached Sarah's room, she was sitting up in bed, tears streaming down her face, her small body shaking with fear. Daddy, Daddy, you have to listen, she was saying, the words tumbling out fast and desperate. Vanessa has a friend, a man. He came to the house sometimes when you were gone. They talked about money and papers and making us disappear. I heard them, Daddy. I heard them say they were going to take us away somewhere you'd never find us. They said after the trip, after Singapore, they were going to do it. Please, Daddy, you have to believe me. I believe you, baby. I believe every word, Michael said, gathering her carefully into his arms, mindful of her IV lines and casted leg. The police are here. They're going to catch Vanessa and this man. They're going to make sure you're safe. Detective Rodriguez had followed him into the room, and she knelt down beside Sarah's bed, her voice gentle. Sarah, sweetheart, you're being so brave. Can you tell me what this man looked like? Anything you remember could help us. Sarah wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. He was tall, and he had gray hair and a scar on his face right here. She touched her own cheek. And he wore expensive suits like Daddy, and he smelled like cigars. Cohiba cigars. I know because my grandpa used to smoke them before he died. Vanessa called him James. He was mean. He looked at me and Luke like we were bugs he wanted to step on. James, Detective Rodriguez repeated, and she looked at another officer who had joined them. James Reynolds. We need to find him now before he and Vanessa run. Michael's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw a text from an unknown number. His hands were shaking as he opened it. The message was short, venomous. You took everything from me, Donovan. Now I'll take everything from you. Your children will disappear, and you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if they're alive or dead. You should have taught him the fall for me. Michael showed the message to Detective Rodriguez and watched her face go hard as stone. That's a direct threat and an admission of conspiracy. This gives us everything we need. Get a trace on this number now. Get backup units mobilized. I want Reynolds and Mitchell found within the hour. But even as the police sprang into action, even as officers flooded out of the hospital to search, Michael felt dread creeping up his spine. Reynolds and Vanessa had been planning this for months. They had been careful, patient, and cruel. And now they were cornered and desperate. Desperate people did terrible things. He held Sarah close and looked over at Luke, still sleeping in his hospital bed, still fighting to survive, and he knew with absolute certainty that this was not over. The worst was still coming. Reynolds would try one more time to finish what he had started. Mr. Donovan, a doctor said from the doorway, I need to speak with you about Luke's condition. Michael kissed Sarah on the forehead. I'll be right back, sweetheart. I promise. Sarah's eyes widened with fear. Don't leave, Daddy. Please don't leave. I'll be right outside the door, Michael assured her. Detective Rodriguez will stay with you. And there's an officer right outside. No one is going to hurt you, I swear. Sarah looked at Detective Rodriguez, assessing her with the weary wisdom of a child who had learned not to trust adults. Finally, she nodded. Okay, Daddy, but come back fast. Michael followed the doctor into the hallway, where he could still see Sarah through the glass window of the door. Mr. Donovan, your son's condition is extremely serious, the doctor said, her voice low in concern. The dehydration and malnutrition have caused organ damage. His kidneys are struggling. His heart is weak. We're doing everything we can, but the next 48 hours are critical. If he doesn't improve, he could suffer permanent brain damage from the prolonged lack of nutrition. Michael felt the floor drop away beneath him. Will he survive? The doctor's eyes were compassionate but honest. I don't make promises I can't keep, Mr. Donovan. Your son is fighting very hard. He's got a tremendous will to live, but I need you to be prepared. He's the most severely malnourished child I've seen in 20 years of practice. Another day without intervention, and we would have lost him. Michael looked through the window at his tiny son, swaddled in blankets, tubes and wires connecting him to machines that beeped and hummed, keeping him alive. This child who should have been running and laughing, who should have been babbling his first words, playing with toys, being a chubby, healthy toddler. Instead, he was skeletal, gray, fighting for every breath. What can I do? Michael asked, the words scraping his throat. Be here, the doctor said simply. Talk to him. Hold his hand. Children respond to their parents' presence, even when they're unconscious. And take care of yourself too. Your children need you strong. Michael nodded, but he knew he wouldn't leave this hospital until his children did. He wouldn't sleep in a bed while they lay in hospital beds. He wouldn't eat proper meals while they received nutrition through tubes. He would share their suffering as much as he could, a paltry atonement for not being there when they needed him most. He returned to the room to find Sarah had fallen asleep, exhausted by fear and emotion. Detective Rodriguez stood by the window, looking out at the Boston skyline, where lights twinkled through the rain. You should know, she said quietly, not turning around, that we found more correspondence. Emails between Vanessa and Reynolds. They've been planning this for over 2 years. Reynolds was obsessed with destroying you. He blamed you for his downfall, for losing his wife, his reputation, everything. He found Vanessa through an old connection. She had a history of targeting wealthy families, insinuating herself into their lives. Michael sank into the chair between his children's beds, taking Sarah's limp hand in his. Why didn't I see it? How could I have been so blind? Detective Rodriguez turned to face him. Grief makes us vulnerable, Mr. Donovan. And people like Vanessa are experts at exploiting vulnerability. They're predators, and they're good at what they do. I'm a security expert, Michael said, the irony bitter on his tongue. I protect corporations from threats. I identify vulnerabilities and eliminate them. I spot deception. It's what I built my fortune on. And I couldn't protect my own children in my own home. You saw what she wanted you to see, Detective Rodriguez said. We found evidence she was drugging you when you were home. Low doses of sedatives in your evening drinks. Just enough to make you slightly deeply, to dull your perceptions, to make you miss the signs. She was careful, methodical, and she had professional help. Michael remembered how he'd sleep so soundly when he was home, how sometimes he'd feel sluggish in the mornings, how he'd attributed it to jet lag and exhaustion. All this time she'd been drugging him, making sure he couldn't see what was happening right under his nose. We also found something else, Detective Rodriguez said. Sarah's school records. Her teachers reported concerns multiple times. She was losing weight. She was withdrawn. She had unexplained absences. The school tried to contact you directly, but the emails were intercepted. Vanessa had access to your accounts. She deleted the messages before you could see them. Michael closed his eyes, imagining Sarah sitting in a classroom, hoping someone would notice, would help, while he flew from Tokyo to London to Dubai, chasing the next deal, the next client, the next billion. There was a neighbor too, Detective Rodriguez continued. Dr. Patricia Harris, retired pediatrician. She saw Sarah in the yard 6 months ago and was concerned about her appearance. She tried to talk to Vanessa, offered to examine Sarah, but Vanessa refused and stopped letting the children play outside. Dr. Harris called Child Protective Services. They did a home visit, but Vanessa had been tipped off. She cleaned the children up, coached them on what to say, threatened them if they spoke out of turn. The case was closed as unfounded. So many people had tried to help, and the system had failed them. People had seen the signs, and the signs had been erased, covered up, dismissed. We'll get them, Detective Rodriguez promised. Reynolds and Vanessa, they won't get away with this. I won't let them. Michael looked at his children, at Sarah's thin face, at Luke's struggling body, and he made a vow. Not just to catch Vanessa and Reynolds, not just to see justice done, but to change. To be the father his children deserved. to never again put anything before them, to protect them with his life if necessary. And he knew with the certainty of a man who had faced death on battlefields around the world that he would be tested on that vow sooner rather than later. Reynolds was still out there. Vanessa was still free, and they would come for his children again. This time he would be ready. This time he would not fail. Morning light crept through the hospital blinds, casting thin golden stripes across Michael Donovan's exhausted face. 40 hours without sleep had left him hollow-eyed, his normally immaculate appearance replaced by stubbled cheeks and rumpled clothes. He hadn't left the room except when the nurses insisted, hadn't released his children's hands except when doctors needed access. The plastic chair between their beds had become his post, his watchtower against dangers both seen and unseen. A soft knock at the door announced Detective Rodriguez's return. She carried 2 cups of coffee and a folder tucked under her arm. Michael accepted the coffee with a grateful nod, the warmth of the cup a small comfort against the cold reality surrounding him. "Financial records," Rodriguez said quietly, placing the folder on the small table beside him. "Your accounting department has been very cooperative. Mrs. Donovan has been systematically withdrawing funds for 18 months. Small amounts at first, but increasing over time. $2.7 million in total." Michael stared at the numbers, the dates, the meticulous documentation of betrayal. How had he not noticed? Sentinel Security protected the financial data of Fortune 500 companies, designed systems to detect anomalies and prevent fraud, yet he had missed theft happening in his own accounts. "There's more," Rodriguez continued. "The money was routed through 3 different shell companies before landing in an account in the Cayman Islands. The account belongs to Ocean Vista Holdings." "Reynolds," Michael said, recognition flaring. "That was his shell company during the fraud investigation 5 years ago. We could never prove he owned it, but I knew it was his." Rodriguez nodded. "It gives us the connection we need. Vanessa wasn't just abusing your children. She was working with Reynolds to systematically drain your accounts while setting up something much worse." Michael's eyes moved to Sarah, sleeping fitfully, her small body twitching with nightmares even in medicated sleep. Then to Luke, still motionless except for the shallow rise and fall of his chest, fighting a battle that no 18-month-old should have to fight. "Why?" he asked, the question directed not at Rodriguez but at the universe. Money? Revenge? Was it worth torturing innocent children? "Some people don't see children as people," Rodriguez said, her voice carrying the weight of too many similar cases. "They see them as tools, as leverage, as means to an end." Sarah stirred, her eyelids fluttering open. For one terrible moment, panic flooded her face until she saw Michael. Relief washed over her features, followed immediately by concern. "Luke?" she whispered, trying to sit up despite the IV lines and monitors. "He's right here," Michael assured her, gently easing her back onto the pillows. "He's getting medicine to help him. The doctors are taking good care of him." Sarah's eyes darted around the room, landing on Detective Rodriguez. Fear crept back into her expression. "This is Detective Rodriguez," Michael explained. "She's helping us. She's going to catch Vanessa and make sure she can't hurt you anymore." Sarah studied the detective with the wary assessment of a child who had learned not to trust adults. Finally, she nodded slightly. "Sarah," Rodriguez said gently, moving closer to the bed, "can I ask you some questions about the man who came to your house, the one you told us about yesterday?" Sarah's hand tightened around Michael's. "The man with the scar?" "That's right, James. Can you tell me more about him? What did he and Vanessa talk about when they thought you couldn't hear?" Sarah closed her eyes as if retreating into memory. "They talked about money, about papers, about making us disappear after Daddy's trip to Singapore." "Did they say how they were going to make you disappear?" Rodriguez asked. "They said they were going to take us somewhere Daddy would never find us." Sarah's voice trembled. "I heard them in Daddy's office. I was supposed to be in bed, but I was trying to get food for Luke. Vanessa hadn't given us anything all day. She said after Singapore, they would make it look like an accident." Michael's blood turned to ice. "An accident? They were going to hurt us and make it look like Daddy did it," Sarah whispered. "James said they would make it look like you went crazy and hurt us, and then Vanessa would get everything. The money, the house, everything." Rodriguez exchanged a glance with Michael, the pieces falling into place with horrifying clarity. Not just theft, not just abuse, but a calculated plan to frame Michael for harming his own children, with Vanessa positioned as the grieving stepmother who would inherit everything. "Sarah, did this man James come to the house often?" Rodriguez asked. "Every week when Daddy was gone. Sometimes they would lock us in the closet when he came, but I could hear them through the vent. They would drink and laugh about how stupid Daddy was." Sarah looked at Michael, tears welling in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Daddy. I don't think you're stupid. I tried to call you, but Vanessa took my phone away after the first time. She said if I ever tried to tell you, she would make Luke stop breathing." Michael swallowed the rage that threatened to choke him. "You have nothing to be sorry for, Sarah. Nothing. You were so brave. You protected Luke. You kept records in your diary. You saved both of your lives." Sarah's eyes widened. "You found my diary. Vanessa said she burned it." "She kept it," Rodriguez said, "and it's going to help us put her in prison for a very long time." Sarah fell silent, processing this information with the careful consideration of a child who had learned that adults often said things that weren't true. Finally, she spoke again. "Is Luke going to die?" she asked, her voice small but direct. The question hung in the air, terrible in its clarity. Michael looked at his son, so small in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed, keeping him alive. "No," Michael said firmly. "Luke is very sick, but he's fighting hard. The doctors are helping him, and we're not going to leave his side, not for 1 second." Sarah nodded, accepting this promise with the gravity of a child who had seen promises broken before. "Vanessa put something in your drinks," she said suddenly. "Every time you came home. White powder in your whiskey. She said it would make you sleep so you wouldn't hear us if we cried." Rodriguez straightened, another piece of the puzzle clicking into place. "We found prescription sedatives in her personal items. Sleeping pills, ground into powder. That's why you didn't notice what was happening. She was drugging you." The realization should have brought relief, some explanation for how he had missed the signs. Instead, it only deepened Michael's shame. His children had been suffering while he slept, drugged and oblivious, in the same house. A doctor entered the room, nodding to Michael. "Mr. Donovan, we have Luke's latest test results. His kidney function is improving slightly. It's a good sign. He's responding to treatment." For the first time in 2 days, Michael felt a small flicker of hope. "He's going to make it?" "We're still in critical territory," the doctor cautioned, "but he's fighting. He's stronger than his size would suggest." She glanced at Sarah with a warm smile. "He has a good guardian angel watching over him." Sarah didn't smile back. She had learned not to trust kindness that could vanish in an instant. Rodriguez's phone buzzed. She checked it, her expression turning serious. "I need to step out for a moment," she said. "Officer Martinez will stay right outside the door." After she left, Sarah tugged on Michael's sleeve. "Daddy, I'm afraid." "I know, sweetheart, but you're safe now, I promise." Sarah shook her head. "Vanessa always knows things. She always finds out. She said she has eyes everywhere. She said no matter where we went, she would find us." Michael leaned closer, his voice low and fierce. "Listen to me, Sarah. I was a Navy SEAL before you were born. Do you know what that is?" Sarah's eyes widened slightly. "Like the soldiers in your pictures, the ones on the boats." "That's right. I was trained to protect people, to stop bad people from hurting others. I didn't protect you before, and that was the biggest mistake of my life. But I'm here now, and I swear to you, no one will ever hurt you or Luke again." Sarah studied his face, looking for truth in his words, measuring them against too many broken promises. "Pinky swear?" she asked finally, extending her small finger. Michael linked his pinky with hers, the childhood ritual a solemn oath between them. "Pinky swear." Rodriguez returned, her face grim. She motioned for Michael to join her in the hallway. He squeezed Sarah's hand. "I'll be right outside the door where you can see me. I'm not going anywhere." In the hallway, Rodriguez kept her voice low. "We've got a problem. Reynolds has disappeared. Officers went to his Manhattan apartment, but neighbors say they haven't seen him in 3 days. His car is gone. His phone is off, and we found something else." She showed Michael her phone screen, displaying a security camera image. "This was taken at Boston Logan International Airport yesterday. Vanessa Mitchell, in a blonde wig, boarding a flight to Miami." Michael's stomach clenched. She's running. Maybe, or regrouping. Miami is where she's from originally. She might have contacts there, resources. What about my assistant, Jennifer? That's the other problem. We can't locate her. She's not at her apartment, not answering her phone. Her neighbors say they saw her leave with a suitcase last night. The betrayal cut deep. Jennifer Chen had been with him for 8 years, had watched Sarah grow up, had sent gifts for Luke's birth. He had trusted her completely. She had access to everything, Michael said. My schedule, my accounts, my home security system. We're looking at her finances now, Rodriguez said. Preliminary search shows large deposits to her account over the past 6 months. Well hidden but traceable. Michael leaned against the wall, the weight of compounding betrayals threatening to crush him. Reynolds bought her. It appears so, and that means he may have access to information about the hospital, about security protocols here. Michael straightened, his military training taking over. We need to move the children, now, different hospital, different names. Rodriguez shook her head. Luke is too unstable to move. The doctors are clear on that. And moving them could alert Reynolds if he has eyes here. Our best option is to increase security and set a trap. My children aren't bait, Michael growled. Of course not. But Reynolds doesn't know that we know about him. We can use that. We've already doubled the officers on this floor. We're monitoring all entrances. And we've got plainclothes officers scattered throughout the hospital. Michael glanced through the door window at Sarah, who was watching them with anxious eyes. It's not enough. Reynolds is desperate now. Desperate people are dangerous. He's planned this for years. He won't give up. Rodriguez's phone buzzed again. She checked it, her expression changing. We just got a hit on Jennifer Chen's credit card. Gas station in Providence, Rhode Island. An hour ago. Heading south, Michael said, toward Miami. I'll have officers check the security footage, confirm it was her. The elevator at the end of the corridor dinged, and a doctor emerged, middle-aged with silver hair and glasses, pushing a cart of medical equipment. Michael stiffened, his instincts flaring. Something about the man's movements, the way he scanned the hallway while pretending to check his clipboard. That doctor, Michael whispered to Rodriguez, has he been treating my children? Rodriguez frowned, watching the man approach the nurse's station. I don't recognize him. Michael's hand moved automatically to his hip, where a sidearm would have been in his military days. Get your officer over here now. The doctor looked up, his eyes meeting Michael's for a brief moment. Recognition flashed between them. The doctor abruptly turned the cart, heading toward the fire exit. Stop him, Michael shouted, already sprinting down the hallway. The officer outside Sarah's room drew his weapon, moving to intercept. The doctor abandoned the cart, reaching into his white coat. Michael tackled him from behind, driving him into the wall with bone-jarring force. They crashed to the floor, the doctor's glasses skittering across the tiles, revealing a thin scar running down his left cheek. Reynolds, Michael snarled, pinning the man's arms. Reynolds bucked beneath him, stronger than he looked. His hand emerged from his coat, clutching a syringe. Michael slammed Reynolds' wrist against the floor until the syringe fell free. Officer Martinez reached them, weapon drawn. Don't move, the officer commanded. Police! Reynolds went still, his eyes fixed on Michael with pure hatred. You should have died in Afghanistan, he hissed. Would have saved everyone a lot of trouble. Rodriguez arrived, handcuffs ready. James Reynolds, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, child endangerment, fraud, and about a dozen other charges we'll sort out later. As Rodriguez secured the handcuffs, Michael spotted something in Reynolds' coat pocket. A hospital ID badge with Reynolds' photo, but a different name. Dr. Richard Sanders. Where did you get this? Michael demanded. Reynolds smiled, blood from his split lip painting his teeth red. You're not the only one, with connections, Donovan. You took mine, I took yours. Jennifer was quite helpful once I explained how much money was involved. Rodriguez pulled Reynolds to his feet. Get him out of here, she told Officer Martinez. Full search, suicide watch. No contact with anyone until I interrogate him. As Martinez led Reynolds away, Michael examined the abandoned cart. Beneath a layer of legitimate medical supplies lay a package wrapped in blue surgical cloth. He carefully unwrapped it to reveal a loaded syringe and a vial labeled potassium chloride. Rodriguez swore under her breath. Potassium chloride stops the heart, mimics natural cardiac arrest. almost impossible to detect unless someone's specifically looking for it. "He was going to kill my son," Michael said, the words coming from some distant, frozen place inside him. "Make it look like natural causes. Luke's already so weak, no one would question it." "But we caught him," Rodriguez reminded him. "He failed." Michael looked back towards Sarah's room, where his daughter was pressing her hands against the window, her face contorted with fear. "He'll try again. Different method, different approach. Reynolds isn't the type to give up." Rodriguez took the evidence, securing it carefully. "We've got him in custody. He's not getting to your children." "What about Vanessa? What about Jennifer? What about whoever helped him get that ID badge and that drug?" Michael ran a hand through his hair, the magnitude of the conspiracy overwhelming. "They've been planning this for years, Detective. They've thought of everything." Sarah's frightened face in the window pulled him back. He returned to her room, forcing his expression to calm as he entered. "Daddy, what happened? I saw the police take someone away." Michael sat beside her, taking her small hand in his. "They caught a bad man who was trying to hurt people. But he can't hurt anyone now. The police have him." Sarah wasn't fooled. "It was him, wasn't it? The man with the scar. James." Michael hesitated, torn between truth and protection. Sarah deserved honesty after so many lies, but he didn't want to frighten her more. "Yes," he said finally, "it was him, but he's going to jail, and he's never getting out. He can't hurt you anymore." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "He said he would kill Luke. He told Vanessa they would make Luke have an accident, and everyone would think he just died because he was sick." Michael gathered her carefully into his arms, mindful of her IV lines. "Listen to me, Sarah. No one is going to hurt Luke. No one is going to hurt you. I'm right here, and I'm not leaving. And there are police officers everywhere, keeping you safe." Sarah buried her face against his chest, her small body trembling. "Vanessa said you wouldn't believe me. She said no one would believe me because I'm just a kid, and grown-ups never listen to kids." Michael's heart broke all over again. "I believe you, Sarah. I believe every word. And I'm so sorry I didn't see what was happening. So sorry I wasn't there to protect you." Sarah pulled back, looking up at him with eyes too old for her 7 years. "It wasn't your fault, Daddy. Vanessa put the medicine in your drinks, and she deleted the emails from my school, and she told everyone I made up stories. She was really good at lying." The absolution from his daughter's lips only deepened Michael's guilt. She shouldn't be comforting him. He should be comforting her. A nurse entered, carrying fresh IV bags. "Time for medication," she said cheerfully, "and we've got some special nutrition for our brave girl, going to help you get strong again." Sarah watched the nurse suspiciously as she changed the IV bags, checked vital signs, and made notes on the tablet computer. The nurse moved to Luke's bed next, repeating the process with the baby's multiple IV lines. "His color is better today," she observed, "and his oxygen levels are improving. He's a fighter, this little one." After the nurse left, Michael noticed Sarah staring at her brother, her expression a complex mixture of hope and fear. "Is Luke really getting better?" she asked. "Yes," Michael said. "Slowly, but yes. The doctors say he's responding to treatment." Sarah nodded, absorbing this information. "When can we go home?" The simple question carried layers of meaning. Home. The place that should have been safe but had become a prison. The place where Vanessa had tortured them. The place filled with painful memories. "Not to the old house," Michael said. "I'm going to find us a new home. Somewhere safe. Somewhere no one can find us." Sarah considered this. "Can I have a real bed, with blankets and a pillow?" The request, so basic, so heartbreaking in its simplicity, made Michael's throat tighten. "Yes, the biggest, softest bed you can imagine, and all the blankets you want, and toys, and books, and anything else you need." "Can Luke have a room next to mine, so I can hear him if he cries at night?" "Of course, I'll make sure of it." Sarah settled back against the pillows, seemingly satisfied with these promises. Her eyelids grew heavy as the medication took effect. "Don't leave, Daddy," she murmured as she drifted toward sleep. "Never again," Michael promised, holding her hand as she fell asleep. Rodriguez returned, accompanied by a man in a dark suit who radiated federal authority. "Mr. Donovan, this is Special Agent Thomas Mercer, FBI. He's taking over the Reynolds investigation." Michael stood to shake the agent's hand, positioning himself so he could still see both children. Mr. Donovan, Mercer said, his voice low and measured. I understand your family has been targeted by James Reynolds as part of an elaborate revenge scheme. We believe it extends beyond just Reynolds and your former wife. Former assistant, Michael corrected automatically. Vanessa was never my wife. The paperwork was forged. Mercer nodded. Correct. We've been tracking Reynolds for some time on suspicion of corporate espionage. What began as an investigation into data theft has expanded significantly. Reynolds has connections to organized crime figures in Miami and international contacts in several countries. He wants to destroy me, Michael said. This isn't just about money, it's personal. Yes, Mercer agreed, but the scope is larger than you might realize. Sentinel Security protects some of the most sensitive corporate data in the world. Your client list includes defense contractors, pharmaceutical companies, financial institutions. Reynolds wasn't just after your money or your company, he was after your access. The implications hit Michael like a physical blow. Reynolds hadn't just been trying to steal his fortune, he'd been trying to acquire his position, his credentials, his client relationships. With those, Reynolds could sell access to sensitive systems around the world. We need to move your children, Mercer said. Reynolds has been apprehended, but Vanessa Mitchell is still at large, and we have evidence she's working with others. This hospital is too exposed. Luke can't be moved, Michael said. The doctors were clear about that. His condition is too fragile. We're bringing in a specialized medical transport team, Mercer explained, and we've arranged for continued care at a secure facility. It's a risk, but less of a risk than keeping them here where Mitchell knows their location. Michael looked at his sleeping children, weighing the dangers. When? Tonight, under cover of darkness. We'll create a diversion to draw attention away from the actual transport. I go with them, Michael said. It wasn't a question. Of course, Detective Rodriguez will coordinate with local authorities. I'll handle the federal aspects. Mercer handed Michael a secure phone. Use this from now on. Your personal devices may be compromised. After Mercer left, Michael turned to Rodriguez. Do you trust him? Rodriguez nodded. Mercer's reputation is solid, and frankly, we need the FBI's resources. This conspiracy is bigger than my department can handle alone. Michael returned to his seat between the children's beds, taking Sarah's limp hand in his left and Luke's tiny fist in his right. His mind raced through contingencies, threats, scenarios. The military strategist in him cataloged risks and solutions, while the father in him raged at the danger surrounding his children. Hours passed. Sarah woke briefly, ate a few spoonfuls of broth, then drifted back to sleep. Luke remained unconscious, though the nurses assured Michael that his vital signs were slowly improving. Outside the window, the Boston sky darkened from gray to black, rain still falling in steady sheets. Rodriguez entered quietly. Transport team is here. We move in 30 minutes. Medical staff have prepared both children for transport. Michael nodded, his body tense with anticipation. What's the diversion? Fire alarm on the opposite wing. Hospital staff have been informed it's a drill. Real staff will continue working, but anyone watching the hospital will see evacuation procedures in that wing. And our exit? Service elevator to the basement, then ambulance transport through the loading dock, motorcycle escort to clear traffic. We'll be at the secure facility in 40 minutes. Michael stood, stretching muscles stiff from hours of sitting. I want to check the rope myself. Rodriguez hesitated. Mr. Donovan, with all due respect, you should stay with your children. Let us handle security. Michael fixed her with the steady gaze that had made junior officers snap to attention in his SEAL days. My children were harmed under the protection of people I trusted. I'm not making that mistake again. I'll check the route while they're being prepped for his transport. Rodriguez recognized the immovable force before her. Officer Martinez will stay with them. No one enters this room except medical staff that I've personally cleared. Michael followed Rodriguez through the quiet corridors of the hospital. The night shift moved efficiently around them, accustomed to the rhythms of emergency and crisis. They took the service elevator to the basement, where an ambulance waited, its rear doors open. 2 paramedics stood nearby, checking equipment. These are the actual transport medics? Michael asked, studying their faces, their body language. Vetted personally by Agent Mercer, military backgrounds, security clearances. Michael inspected the ambulance interior, checking sight lines, entry points, vulnerabilities. Years of assessing threats had honed his eye for danger. Satisfied, he nodded to Rodriguez. Let's get my children. They returned to the fourth floor, where a small team of nurses was disconnecting Luke from the larger hospital equipment, transferring him to portable versions. Sarah was awake, watching with wide-bodied, frightened eyes as strangers handled her brother. Daddy, what's happening? Michael went to her side immediately. We're going to a special hospital, Sarah. A safer place where doctors can help you and Luke get better. I'll be with you the whole time. Is Vanessa trying to find us? The direct question deserved a direct answer. Yes, but she won't succeed. We're going somewhere she can't find us. Sarah processed this, then asked the question that revealed her deepest fear. Will you leave again? No, Sarah, I will not leave you. Not for 1 minute. I promise. The transfer to portable equipment complete, the nurses helped Sarah into a wheelchair, while a doctor carefully placed Luke in a special transport bassinet. Michael gathered Sarah's few possessions, the backpack Detective Rodriguez had brought from their house, filled with clean clothes and a stuffed rabbit that had somehow survived Vanessa's purge of the children's belongings. Rodriguez's radio crackled. Diversion in place, all units in position, proceed with transport. The small procession moved toward the service elevator, Rodriguez in front, followed by Sarah in the wheelchair pushed by a nurse. Then Luke in his bassinet carried by a doctor, with Michael beside them, and Officer Martinez bringing up the rear. The elevator doors opened. They entered, the space crowded with people and equipment. As the doors began to close, a hand thrust between them, forcing them back open. A nurse stood there, blonde hair pulled back in a neat bun, surgical mask covering the lower half of her face. Wait, critical medication for the infant. Rodriguez's hand moved toward her weapon. This elevator is reserved. It's for the baby, the nurse insisted, holding up a syringe. Doctor's orders. The doctor carrying Luke frowned. I didn't order any additional medication. In that moment of confusion, the nurse's free hand emerged from her pocket, holding a small pistol with a silencer attached. Before anyone could react, she fired twice. The doctor collapsed, blood blooming across his scrubs. Officer Martinez reached for his weapon, but took a bullet to the shoulder, spinning him against the elevator wall. Michael lunged forward, placing himself between the shooter and his children. Sarah screamed as the nurse tore off her surgical mask, revealing Vanessa's face, contorted with hatred. You should have stayed in Singapore, she hissed, aiming the gun at Michael's chest. Michael charged her, using the confined space of the elevator to his advantage. Vanessa fired, the bullet grazing his arm. He slammed into her, driving her against the wall. The gun fired again, the bullet embedding itself in the ceiling. Rodriguez drew her weapon, but couldn't get a clear shot with Michael and Vanessa struggling in the doorway. Police! Drop the weapon! Vanessa fought with surprising strength, her elbow connecting with Michael's wounded arm, sending waves of pain through his body. The gun came up again, aimed not at Michael but at Sarah, who sat frozen in terror in her wheelchair. No, Michael roared, throwing himself in front of his daughter as Vanessa pulled the trigger. The impact drove him backward, fire blooming in his chest. Through a haze of pain, he saw Rodriguez tackle Vanessa, heard the scuffle, the shout of "Gun secured!" The elevator was chaos, people shouting, equipment beeping in alarm, Sarah screaming, "Daddy! Daddy!" Michael touched his chest, his hand coming away red. The bullet had struck high on the left side, missing his heart but puncturing his lung. Each breath became a struggle, blood filling spaces meant for air. He fought to stay conscious, to stay upright, to protect his children. Michael, stay with me, Rodriguez's voice seemed to come from very far away. Medics are on the way. Stay with me. The world tilted and spun. Michael found himself on the elevator floor, staring up at fluorescent lights that pulsed with his fading heartbeat. Sarah's face appeared above him, tears streaming down her cheeks. Daddy, please don't leave me, she sobbed. Please don't go like Mommy did. Please. Michael tried to speak, to reassure her, but blood filled his mouth. He could hear more shouting, more footsteps, emergency procedures being initiated around him. But all that mattered was Sarah's face, Luke's safety. With tremendous effort, he lifted his hand to touch Sarah's cheek, leaving a smear of blood on her pale skin. Love, you... he managed before darkness claimed him. Beeping machines pulled Michael back from the void. Pain radiated from his chest with each heartbeat, each breath a conscious effort. His eyelids felt weighted, but he forced them open, panic rising as he remembered the elevator, the gun, Sarah screaming. Sarah, he tried to say, but a tube in his throat prevented speech. A hand gripped his, firm and reassuring. "They're safe, Mr. Donovan," Rodriguez's voice. "Both children are safe. You've been in surgery. The bullet collapsed your lung, but the doctors repaired the damage. You're going to be okay." Michael blinked, trying to clear his vision. Rodriguez came into focus, standing beside his bed. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her clothes rumpled. "Vanessa's in custody," she continued, understanding the questions he couldn't ask. "The doctor who was shot survived, though he's in critical condition. Officer Martinez will recover. We're in a secure facility now. Military hospital outside Boston. FBI protection." Michael squeezed her hand, trying to convey his need to see his children. "They're nearby," Rodriguez assured him. "Sarah refused to leave your side until the doctors promised she could see you as soon as you woke up. She's with a child psychologist now. Luke is in the NICU, showing improvement. His doctors are optimistic." Relief flooded through Michael, followed immediately by renewed determination. They had survived, all of them. But the danger wasn't over. Reynolds and Vanessa had connections, resources, reach. As long as they lived, his children weren't truly safe. A doctor entered, checked Michael's vitals, and carefully removed the breathing tube. The procedure left him coughing painfully, each spasm sending fire through his chest. "You're a lucky man, Mr. Donovan," the doctor said, adjusting medication drips. "Centimeter to the right and we wouldn't be having this conversation. You'll need to take it easy for several weeks. The lung needs time to heal completely." After the doctor left, Rodriguez leaned closer. "Vanessa is talking, trying to cut a deal. She's given us names, contacts, the whole conspiracy. Reynolds was the mastermind, but he had help. Financial institutions that looked the other way. Corporate spies inside your company. Former clients with grudges. The scope of the betrayal was staggering. People Michael had trusted, worked with, considered friends. All compromised, all working against him while he flew around the world, building a security empire while leaving his most precious treasures unprotected. The door opened again, and Sarah appeared in a wheelchair, pushed by a woman Michael didn't recognize. His daughter's face lit up when she saw him awake. "Daddy!" The woman wheeled her to the bedside. 15 minutes, she said gently. "Your father needs rest." Sarah reached for Michael's hand, her small fingers wrapping around his with desperate strength. "You didn't leave," she said, wonder in her voice. "Vanessa shot you, but you didn't leave." Michael managed a smile despite the pain. "I promised, didn't I? I'm not going anywhere, Sarah. Not ever again." Sarah studied the machines, the tubes, the bandages, with the careful assessment of a child who had seen too much of hospitals. "Does it hurt?" "A little," Michael admitted, "but I'm getting better, just like you and Luke." "The nice lady is a doctor for feelings," Sarah said, gesturing to the woman who had brought here. "She said it's okay to be scared and sad about what happened. She said it wasn't my fault." "She's right," Michael said firmly. "None of this was your fault, Sarah. None of it." "She said you're going to talk to a feelings doctor too, is that true?" Michael nodded. The FBI had been clear that all three Donovans would need extensive psychological support to process the trauma. "Yes, that's true. Even grown-ups need help with big feelings sometimes." This seemed to satisfy Sarah. "Luke opened his eyes today. He looked at me and held my finger. The doctor said that's a good sign." "The best sign," Michael agreed, his heart lightening at the news. "He's strong, like his big sister." Sarah's expression turned serious. "Vanessa is in jail?" "Yes, and she's never getting out. She can't hurt you anymore." "Promise?" "I promise, Sarah. She'll spend the rest of her life in prison." Sarah absorbed this, weighing it against too many broken promises in the past. What about the other bad people? The ones who helped her and James? The question revealed how much Sarah had overheard, how deeply she understood the conspiracy that had engulfed their lives. Once again, Michael opted for honesty. "The police and the FBI are finding all of them. Every single person who helped hurt you and Luke, and they'll all go to jail too. Sarah nodded, seemingly satisfied. Good. She paused, then asked the question that had clearly been weighing on her. Can we have a new house? I don't want to go back to the old one. Vanessa is there. Yes, Sarah, a new house, far away from Boston, somewhere safe where we can start over. Can I have a dog? Vanessa said I was allergic, but I'm not. She just didn't like dogs. Michael smiled, the simple request a reminder that despite everything, Sarah was still a child with a child's hopes and wishes. Yes, you can have a dog, any kind you want. For the first time since he'd found her on that marble floor, Sarah smiled. A real smile, not the forced grimace she'd learned to produce on command for Vanessa's benefit. It transformed her face, returning some of the innocence that had been stolen from her. Time to go, Sarah, the psychologist said gently. Your dad needs rest, and you have physical therapy. Sarah squeezed Michael's hand one last time. I'll come back later. I'll tell Luke you're awake. I think he misses you. As Sarah was wheeled from the room, Michael felt both profound grief for all his children had endured and fierce determination that they would heal, would thrive, would reclaim the childhood that had been stolen from them. Rodriguez returned after Sarah left. She's remarkable, she said. The psychologists say they've never seen such resilience in a child her age. She shouldn't have had to be resilient, Michael said, his voice rough with emotion. She should have been safe. She will be now, Rodriguez assured him. Vanessa's preliminary hearing is next week. The evidence against her is overwhelming. Your daughter's diary, the financial records, Vanessa's own confession. She's looking at multiple life sentences. And Reynolds? Federal charges on top of the state charges. Corporate espionage, wire fraud, attempted murder, conspiracy. He'll never see the outside of a prison again. Michael nodded, some of the tension easing from his body. The immediate danger had passed. His children were safe, healing. But the road ahead was long. Physical recovery, psychological healing, rebuilding trust, creating a new life from the ashes of betrayal. What happens now, he asked. Now you rest, you heal, you focus on your children. Rodriguez's expression softened. The rest, the investigations, the trials, the corporate fallout will handle that. You've got more important work to do. Michael looked toward the door where Sarah had disappeared. Yes, he agreed, I do. The weight of guilt still pressed on him, the knowledge that he had failed to protect his children when they needed him most. But mingled with the guilt was resolve. He would never fail them again. Whatever it took, however long the journey, he would help them heal. He would be the father they deserved, the father they needed. Outside the window, rain still fell on Boston, washing the city clean. In that moment, Michael made a vow not just to survive, but to build something new from the wreckage of their lives. Something stronger, something precious. A second chance. Spring sunlight filtered through the hospital window, casting a golden rectangle across Michael Donovan's bed. 3 weeks had passed since Vanessa's bullet had torn through his chest, collapsing his lung and nearly ending his life. The physical therapy sessions left him exhausted, each breath still a conscious effort. But Michael pushed himself harder than the doctors recommended. His children needed him strong. His children needed him whole. Dr. Eleanor Wilson, the hospital psychologist, sat in the chair beside his bed, her notepad balanced on her knee. Their daily sessions had become a ritual, unwelcome but necessary. You're still blaming yourself, she observed, her voice neither accusatory nor sympathetic, simply factual. Michael turned from the window, the movement sending a flare of pain through his chest. Wouldn't you? I'm a security expert. I protect corporations worth billions from threats, and I couldn't protect my own children in my own home. Vanessa drugged you. She intercepted communications. She created an elaborate deception designed specifically to exploit your vulnerabilities. This was not a failure of attention, Michael. It was a targeted attack by sophisticated predators. Michael closed his eyes, seeing Sarah's skeletal body on the marble floor, Luke's gray face, the evidence of months of torture that had happened while he flew across continents, building his empire while his children starved. I should have seen it, he insisted. There were signs. Sarah stopped smiling. She stopped asking me to call when I traveled. Luke cried more when I was home. I attributed it to normal childhood phases, to missing their mother, To my own inadequacies as a father, I never once considered that they were being tortured. Dr. Wilson leaned forward, and that's exactly what Vanessa counted on. She studied you, Michael. She knew your patterns, your blind spots. She exploited your grief over Elizabeth's death, your guilt about working long hours, your trust in her as family. She was meticulous. A knock at the door interrupted them. Special Agent Mercer entered, his customary dark suit pristine, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Donovan," he said with a nod. "Doctor, I hope I'm not interrupting." "We were just finishing," Dr. Wilson said, gathering her things. "Same time tomorrow, Michael." After she left, Mercer took the vacant chair. "You're looking better. Doctors say you might be discharged next week." "What about my children?" Michael asked, the only question that mattered. "Sarah's physical recovery is progressing well. The infection in her leg has cleared. She's gained 4 pounds. The physical therapists are confident she'll walk normally with time." Mercer paused. Psychologically, she's still struggling. Nightmares, anxiety, hypervigilance. All expected, given what she endured. And Luke? Remarkable improvement. His latest tests show kidney and liver function returning to normal ranges. He's begun responding to stimuli appropriately for his age. The neurologists are cautiously optimistic that there's been no permanent cognitive damage, though they'll continue monitoring him. Relief washed through Michael, though he knew their healing had barely begun. "Have you located Jennifer?" Mercer's expression tightened. "Yes, Miami Beach police found her body in a hotel room 3 days ago. Apparent suicide, though we suspect otherwise. Reynolds had loose ends to tie up." The news hit Michael harder than expected. Jennifer's betrayal had cut deep, but the thought of her dead, another victim of Reynolds' ruthless plan, brought no satisfaction. "The preliminary hearing for Vanessa is scheduled for next week," Mercer continued. "Her attorney is pursuing an insanity defense, claiming she was coerced by Reynolds." Michael's hands clenched. "She knew exactly what she was doing. For 18 months, she tortured my children with calculation and precision." "The evidence supports that," Mercer agreed. "The diary alone is devastating. But we need to prepare you. Defense attorneys can be brutal. They'll try to shift blame, suggest your frequent absences contributed to the situation." "Let them try," Michael said, steel in his voice. "I'm guilty of trusting the wrong person, of putting work before family. I'll own that responsibility. But Vanessa chose to hurt children, chose to starve them, burn them, lock them in closets. No one forced her hand." Mercer nodded, satisfied with the response. "The prosecutor wants Sarah to testify. Catherine Mills, she's the best the DA's office has, but she won't put Sarah on the stand unless you agree, and unless the psychologist believes she can handle it." The thought of Sarah facing Vanessa across a courtroom made Michael's blood run cold. "She's 7 years old. Hasn't she been through enough?" Mills believes Sarah's testimony could be the difference between Vanessa serving 2 consecutive life sentences or getting the possibility of parole in 20 years. She's articulate, detailed, and her diary corroborates everything she might say on the stand. But it's your decision, as her father. "I need to talk to Sarah about it. This has to be her choice." "Of course, Viberis." Mercer stood to leave, then hesitated. "One more thing. The press has caught wind of the story. Wealthy CEO, abused children, murder plot. It's got all the elements they love. We've kept them at bay so far, but once the trial starts, this will be front-page news." Michael had expected this, had been dreading it. His children's suffering turned into tabloid fodder, their pain exploited for clicks and views. "Can we shield Sarah's identity, at least? Keep her face out of the papers?" Already in motion, the judge has agreed to clear the courtroom during her testimony. No cameras, no sketches. But people will know, Michael. This case is too sensational to contain completely. After Mercer left, Michael struggled out of bed, moving carefully to the window. 3 stories below, he could see the hospital garden, where Sarah sat in a wheelchair, a therapist beside her, working through exercises to strengthen her atrophied muscles. Even from this distance, Michael could see the serious set of her small shoulders, the deliberate way she moved, as if still trying to make herself invisible, to avoid attracting the attention that had so often led to punishment. A nurse helped him to the garden 30 minutes later. Sarah's face brightened when she saw him, the first genuine smile she'd shown since that night on the marble floor. "Daddy, you came outside." Michael settled onto the bench beside her wheelchair, still winded from the short journey. "Beautiful day. Thought we could both use some sunshine." The therapist discreetly moved away, giving them privacy while remaining within sight. Sarah reached for Michael's hand, a habit she'd developed in the hospital, as if constantly needing reassurance that he was real, that he wouldn't disappear. "I saw Luke this morning," she said. "He grabbed my finger and wouldn't let go. The nurse said that's a good sign." "It's an excellent sign," Michael agreed. "Luke is getting stronger every day, just like you." Sarah's expression turned serious, her eyes, so like Elizabeth's, searching his face. "When can we leave the hospital?" "Not to go back to the old house. Never there, but somewhere else." "Soon," Michael promised. "The doctors think next week, maybe. I've been looking at houses out in the countryside, places with big yards where you can play, where we can have that dog you wanted." Sarah nodded, processing this information with the careful consideration of a child who had learned that adult promises were fragile things. "There's something I need to ask you, Sarah. Something important." Michael chose his words carefully. "Vanessa's going to have a trial. That means she'll go to court, and a judge will decide how long she stays in prison." Sarah's hand tightened around his, her body tensing. "Will she come here? Will she find us?" "No, sweetheart. She's in jail, and she's going to stay there. But the lawyers who are making sure she gets punished, they think it would help if you told the judge what happened, if you told your story." Fear flashed across Sarah's face, followed by determination. "Would I have to see her? Would she be able to see me?" "Yes," Michael said honestly. "She would be in the same room, but she couldn't hurt you. I would be there the entire time, and police officers, and the judge. She couldn't come near you." Sarah looked down at her lap, considering. "If I don't tell, will she get out of jail? Will she come after us again?" The question revealed how deeply Sarah understood the stakes, how completely her sense of safety had been shattered. "No, sweetheart. She's going to jail either way. There's lots of evidence about what she did. But if you tell the judge yourself, she'll stay in jail for much longer, maybe forever." Sarah was quiet for a long time, her small face solemn with the weight of decision. Finally, she looked up, her eyes reflecting a wisdom no child should possess. "I'll do it," she said quietly. "I want to make sure she never hurts another little girl or boy. I want to make sure she can't come after Luke." Michael gathered her carefully into his arms, mindful of both their injuries. "You are the bravest person I've ever known, Sarah Donovan. Braver than any soldier I served with. Braver than anyone." "I'm still scared sometimes," she admitted, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared," Michael told her. "It means you do what's right even when you are scared." Later that evening, Michael sat with Catherine Mills in the hospital cafeteria, the prosecutor making notes as they discussed strategy for the trial. Mills was in her mid-50s, with steel gray hair cut in a practical bob and eyes that missed nothing. "Sarah's testimony will be powerful," Mills said, "but I need to prepare you for how difficult it will be. Vanessa's lawyer is Carlton Davis. He's known for aggressive defense tactics, especially with child witnesses." "She's not just a witness," Michael said sharply. "She's a victim, a 7-year-old victim." Mills nodded. "I know that. You know that. But to Davis, she's an obstacle to overcome. He'll try to confuse her, make her contradict herself, suggest she's making up stories for attention, imply that her memories are faulty." Michael's jaw tightened. She kept a diary, 47 entries documenting systematic torture. There's no confusion there. "The diary is our strongest evidence," Mills agreed. "But Davis will try to suggest she was coached, that you or the police told her what to write after the fact. It's standard defense strategy, and I want you prepared for it." The thought of Sarah being interrogated, her suffering questioned, made Michael's chest ache in a way that had nothing to do with his gunshot wound. "How do we protect her?" "I'll object to any badgering. The judge will limit his questions. But Sarah needs to be prepared for the environment, the process. She needs to understand she can take her time, that she can ask for breaks if she gets upset." Michael nodded, already dreading the ordeal his daughter would face. "What about Vanessa?" What's her defense strategy? Mill's expression hardened. She's claiming Reynolds coerced her, that she was afraid of him, that he threatened her if she didn't cooperate. She's painting herself as another victim. That's absurd, Michael said, anger flaring. She was alone with my children for weeks at a time. She chose to starve them, beat them, lock them in closets. Reynolds wasn't standing over her, forcing her hand. The financial records support that, Mills said. She was making transfers to offshore accounts long before Reynolds reappeared. And her previous identity changes, the prior allegations of child abuse, it all points to a pattern of behavior that predates her relationship with Reynolds. Will it be enough? Mills met his gaze directly. With Sarah's testimony? Yes, I believe it will be. The Boston Superior Courthouse loomed against the summer sky, its granite columns and imposing facade designed to intimidate. Michael adjusted his tie, the formal suit uncomfortable after weeks in hospital gowns and casual clothes. Beside him, Dr. Wilson helped Sarah from the wheelchair that had become less necessity and more precaution over the past month. The little girl stood carefully, testing her weight on her healing leg, her white dress and blue cardigan making her look smaller, more vulnerable than she already was. You don't have to do this, Michael reminded her, kneeling to her level despite the protest of his healing chest. We can leave right now. Go get ice cream instead. Sarah shook her head, her expression grave. I want to. I need to. Michael recognized the determination in her eyes, the same stubborn resolve that had kept her alive, that had driven her to protect Luke when no one protected her. He offered his hand and she took it, her small fingers cold despite the warm June morning. Inside, they were escorted through back corridors, avoiding the press gathered in the main lobby. Catherine Mills met them in a small conference room, her expression softening when she saw Sarah. Hello, Sarah, she said, her voice gentle but not condescending. Thank you for coming today. You're a very brave young lady. Sarah regarded the prosecutor with the careful assessment she gave all new adults. Are you going to make sure Vanessa stays in jail? That's my job, Mills confirmed, and you're going to help me do it by telling the judge and the jury exactly what happened. Just like we practiced, okay? Sarah nodded, her grip on Michael's hand tightening. A court officer appeared at the door, informing them it was time. Michael lifted Sarah into his arms, carrying her through the last stretch of hallway to the courtroom doors. Inside, the courtroom fell silent as they entered. Michael felt Sarah tense against him as she scanned the room, her eyes inevitably finding Vanessa at the defense table. The transformation in his former wife was startling. Gone was the polished, beautiful woman who had charmed her way into their lives. In her place sat a diminished figure in a plain gray dress, her hair pulled back severely, her makeup minimal. A deliberate choice, Michael knew, to appear meek, vulnerable, unthreatening. Vanessa's eyes met Sarah's across the courtroom, and Michael felt his daughter's whole body shudder. He tightened his hold, whispering in her ear, "She can't hurt you. Not ever again." The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Raymond Martinez entered, a man whose reputation for fairness was matched only by his intolerance for courtroom theatrics. He acknowledged Sarah with a gentle nod before taking his seat. As previously agreed, Judge Martinez announced, the courtroom will be cleared of all spectators during the minor witness's testimony. Press, please exit now. You'll be readmitted afterwards. There was a shuffling as reporters and members of the public filed out, leaving only essential personnel, the jury, and the legal teams. Michael sat directly behind Mills at the prosecution table, Sarah beside him, still clutching his hand. The prosecution calls Sarah Elizabeth Donovan, Mills announced. Michael helped Sarah to the witness stand, waiting until she was settled before returning to his seat, maintaining eye contact with her the entire time. The bailiff administered a simplified oath, asking Sarah if she promised to tell the truth. Her I do was small but clear. Mills approached, her manner gentle but not patronizing. Sarah, can you tell the court how old you are? 7.5, Sarah answered, her voice barely audible. And who do you live with? My daddy and my baby brother, Luke. Before we lived with Vanessa too, but not anymore. Mills guided Sarah through basic questions, establishing a rapport, helping her relax slightly before moving to more difficult territory. Sarah, can you tell the court what happened when your daddy was away on business trips? Sarah's eyes darted to Vanessa, then back to Mills. She took a deep breath. When Daddy was gone, Vanessa would change. She was nice when Daddy was home, but when he left, she got mean. Really mean. Can you tell us what you mean by mean? She wouldn't let us eat. She said we were too expensive, that we ate too much food. She locked the pantry so we couldn't get food even when we were really hungry. Sometimes she would only give us crackers and water for days. Did Vanessa ever hurt you physically? Yes, Sarah said simply. She would hit me when I was bad, when I didn't clean good enough, or when I cried, or when I tried to give Luke extra food. She pulled my hair so hard that some came out. She burned me with her cigarette 3 times because I didn't smile pretty enough when Daddy called on video. Several jurors visibly flinched at this description. Michael forced himself to remain still, though every instinct screamed at him to go to his daughter, to shield her from having to relive these horrors. Sarah, did you ever tell your father what was happening when he came home? No, Sarah whispered, tears welling in her eyes. Vanessa said if I told him, she would hurt Luke bad. She said she would make him stop breathing, and I believed her, so I didn't tell. Did Vanessa ever lock you and Luke somewhere? Sarah nodded. In the storage closet. It was dark and small, and there was no bathroom. She would lock us in there for a whole day sometimes. When Luke had accidents, she would get really mad and not feed us for even longer. Mills approached the evidence table and picked up the pink diary in its protective covering. Sarah, do you recognize this? Sarah's eyes widened. That's my diary. I thought Vanessa burned it. She kept it. Can you tell the court why you wrote in this diary? I wanted someone to know what was happening, in case something happened to me and Luke, in case we disappeared like Vanessa said we would. I hid it under my mattress. I thought if something happened to us, maybe somebody would find it and know the truth. The simple explanation, delivered in a child's voice, laid bare the horror of her existence. Mills continued gently. Can you tell the court about the night your father came home and found you and Luke? Sarah's eyes sought Michael's, drawing strength from his presence. Vanessa locked us in the closet for 3 days because I tried to get food for Luke. She said we needed to learn a lesson. Luke got really sick. He stopped crying. He just laid there, and I was so scared he was dying. I had a broken leg from when she pushed me down the stairs a few days before. It hurt so much, but I had to get help for Luke. Sarah's voice grew stronger as she continued, the words pouring out now. I waited until I couldn't hear Vanessa anymore. I think she went out. I used a nail I found to pick the lock like I saw in a movie once. It took a long time and it hurt my fingers, but I got the door open. I pulled Luke with me. I was trying to get to the front door to find help, but it was so far and my leg hurt so much. And then Daddy came home. Daddy saved us. The courtroom was utterly silent, the weight of Sarah's testimony hanging in the air. Mills thanked her gently, then turned to the defense. Your witness, Mr. Davis? Carlton Davis approached the stand, his manner carefully modulated to appear non-threatening. Hello, Sarah. I just have a few questions for you, okay? Sarah nodded, watching him warily. Sarah, did your father travel a lot for work? Yes. Was he gone for long periods of time? Sometimes. He has an important job. Did you miss him when he was gone? Yes. Did it make you sad when he left? Sarah frowned slightly, sensing the trap. Yes, but I understood. Daddy had to work. Davis nodded sympathetically. It's hard when parents have to work, isn't it? Sometimes it might make you angry or upset. Objection, Mills said sharply, leading the witness. Sustained, Judge Martinez ruled. Rephrase, Mr. Davis. Davis adjusted smoothly. Sarah, did you ever feel angry at your father for being gone so much? Sometimes, Sarah admitted, but I never made up stories about Vanessa because of it. That's what you're trying to say, but it's not true. I wrote down what really happened. Davis blinked, momentarily thrown by the direct response from the child witness. He regrouped, changing tactics. Sarah, did you like Vanessa when she first came to live with you? Yes, she was nice at first. She said she would take care of us like Mommy did. And when did that change? After she married Daddy, after his first trip away after the wedding. She changed as soon as he left. Her face got different. Her voice got different. She said we were going to learn who was really in charge now. Davis tried several more angles, attempting to suggest confusion, exaggeration, misunderstanding. But Sarah remained clear, her responses direct and consistent. When he suggested that perhaps she had misinterpreted normal discipline, Sarah's response was devastating in its simplicity. Is it normal to lock babies in closets for days without food? Is it normal to burn children with cigarettes? My daddy never did those things. The other mommies at school never did those things. Only Vanessa. Finally, Davis played his last card. Sarah, isn't it true that you were jealous of Vanessa? That you resented her taking your mother's place? Sarah's gaze was steady, unflinching. I wanted my daddy to be happy. I thought Vanessa would make him happy. I tried really hard to make her like me. I cleaned my room. I did all my homework. I took care of Luke. I tried everything. But she still hurt us. She still said we were bound and worthless and that nobody wanted us. Sarah looked directly at Vanessa then, and her voice became stronger. She told me Daddy didn't love us anymore, but she was lying. Daddy came back. Daddy saved us. Davis had no response to the simple truth in those words. No further questions, Your Honor. Mills rose for a brief redirect. Sarah, was anything you told the court today untrue or exaggerated? No, Sarah said firmly. It all happened. Every word is true. Thank you, Sarah. No further questions. Judge Martinez dismissed Sarah from the witness stand. Michael was immediately at her side, lifting her into his arms. As he carried her toward the exit, Sarah glanced back over his shoulder at Vanessa. She can't hurt us anymore. Right, Daddy? She whispered. Never again, Michael promised, holding her close as they left the courtroom. The trial continued for 9 more days. Medical experts testified about the children's injuries. Financial investigators detailed the money trail from Michael's accounts to offshore holdings. Neighbors and teachers described their concerns and failed attempts to intervene. Reynolds, testifying from prison in exchange for avoiding the death penalty on federal charges, confirmed the plot to frame Michael and gain control of his assets. Vanessa took the stand in her own defense, claiming fear of Reynolds, painting herself as another victim. But under Mills' cross-examination, her story unraveled. The timeline didn't match. The financial transfers began before Reynolds reappeared. And most damning, her previous history of suspected child abuse under different names established a pattern independent of Reynolds' influence. On the 10th day, the jury returned after just 4 hours of deliberation. Michael sat behind the prosecution table, his heart pounding as the foreman stood. On all counts, we find the defendant guilty. The sentencing hearing a week later was brief. Judge Martinez made his disgust clear as he addressed Vanessa. Elena Cordero, also known as Vanessa Mitchell, you exploited a grieving family. You tortured innocent children with calculated cruelty. You have shown no genuine remorse for your actions. I hereby sentence you to 2 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus 60 years for the additional charges. Vanessa's composure finally shattered. She screamed obscenities, threats, her face contorted with the hatred she had hidden for so long. It took 3 officers to subdue her and remove her from the courtroom. Michael felt no satisfaction, only relief. It was over. His children were safe. Justice, imperfect but real, had been served. 5 years later, Michael stood in the backyard of their farmhouse in rural Massachusetts, watching Sarah push her brother on the swing set. At 12, Sarah had grown tall and strong. Her broken leg healed, though she still walked with a slight limp the doctor said might never completely disappear. Her laughter, once so rare, now came easily as she played with Luke. Luke, now 6, was a miracle child who had defied every dire prediction. The doctors had warned of potential developmental delays, of the possibility that the prolonged starvation during his critical early months might have caused permanent damage. But Luke had fought his way back, his body and mind recovering with the resilience of youth. Now he spent his days collecting bugs, building elaborate Lego structures, and asking endless questions about how everything in the world worked. "Higher, Sarah! Higher!" Luke shouted, his voice full of joy and trust. Sarah obliged, pushing harder, her long brown hair flying behind her in the autumn breeze. Beside her, a golden retriever named Max bounced excitedly, barking at the swinging child. Michael watched them, his heart full. They had lost so much time, so many moments that should have been innocent and carefree had been stolen by cruelty and greed. But they were here now. They were together. They were healing. Sarah had spent years in therapy, working through the trauma, learning that she was not responsible for protecting everyone, that she was allowed to be a child, that her needs mattered. She still had nightmares sometimes, still checked on Luke multiple times each night, still flinched at loud noises or sudden movements. But she was getting better, steadily finding her way back to the girl she should have been all along. She had friends now, real friends who came for sleepovers and birthday parties. She had joined the school choir, her voice clear and beautiful, as she sang the songs she had once whispered in the darkness to keep Luke alive. She smiled more often than she cried these days, and that felt like a victory worth celebrating. Luke remembered almost nothing of those terrible months, too young when it happened for the memories to take hold. Michael was grateful for that mercy even as he carried the memories for his son, held them safe so Luke would never have to bear that weight. Luke knew the basic facts, knew that a bad woman had hurt him and Sarah when he was a baby, knew that Daddy had saved them and the bad woman was in prison forever. But the details, the horrors, those Michael protected him from. Michael had changed too. He had left behind the driven, workaholic businessman and become something gentler, more present. He still worked, had started a new company developing software to help child protection agencies detect and prevent abuse. But he worked from home now, kept normal hours, never missed a soccer game or school concert or bedtime story. His children knew beyond any doubt that they were his priority, his purpose, his reason for being. "Daddy, come play with us," Luke called, waving frantically from the swing. Michael smiled and jogged over, catching his son in midair as he jumped from the swing, spinning him around while Luke shrieked with delight. Sarah watched them, a soft expression on her face, the look of a child who finally felt safe enough to let someone else do the protecting. They went inside as the sun began to set, the October air growing chilly. Michael made dinner, nothing fancy, just spaghetti and meatballs and garlic bread, but they ate together at the kitchen table and talked about their days. Luke told elaborate stories about the frog he had found by the pond, and Sarah helped him with his spelling homework, and it was ordinary and perfect and everything Michael had ever wanted. At bedtime, Michael tucked Luke in first, reading him a story about dinosaurs, and Luke fell asleep before they reached the end, his small hand curled around Michael's finger, his breathing deep and peaceful. Michael sat there for a long moment watching his son sleep, marveling at this child who had survived the impossible. Then he went to Sarah's room and found her sitting up in bed with a book, a new diary, its pages filled with normal 12-year-old concerns about friends and school and the horse she hoped to have someday. "Reading your diary?" Michael asked, settling onto the edge of her bed. "Anything you want to share?" "Just writing about the science project," Sarah said. "Miss Jenkins says mine might win the fair this year." "I wouldn't be surprised. Your volcano last year was pretty spectacular." Sarah smiled, then grew thoughtful. "Dad, do you think Mom would be proud of us, of how we are now?" The question caught Michael off guard, though it shouldn't have. As Sarah grew older, her thoughts of Elizabeth became more frequent, more complex. "Your mom would be incredibly proud," he said with absolute certainty. "Especially of you, Sarah. You saved your brother's life. You were braver than anyone should ever have to be. She would be so proud." "I miss her," Sarah said simply. "But I'm glad I have you. I'm glad you came home that night. I'm glad you saw us." "I will always see you," Michael promised. The same promise he had made 1,000 times and would make 1,000 more. "You and Luke are my whole world. Everything I do, everything I am, it's for you." Sarah hugged him tight, and Michael held her, this brave, beautiful child who had endured hell and come out the other side stronger. He silently thanked Elizabeth wherever she was for giving him these children, for making him a father, for giving him the greatest purpose he would ever have. "I love you, Dad," Sarah whispered. "I love you too, sweetheart," Michael whispered back. "Sweet dreams." He turned off the light and left her door open, just a crack, the way she liked it, and walked downstairs to the living room where photographs covered the mantel. Photographs of the three of them smiling, laughing, living, healing. The past would always be part of them. The scars would always remain. But they were building something new now, something good, something filled with light and love and hope. They were a family. They were together. They were safe, and that was enough. That was everything.